at the Old Testament. The Old Testament is written in Hebrew, New Testament in Greek. But the unique thing is that in the Masoretic texts, when they found those texts, those Dead Sea Scrolls, it wasn't in the Elizabethan English King language that we have. So they had to translate it the best they could in the 14th century. Here's a bad context in verse 2, that my goodness extends not to thee. In other words, how I really ought to read is verse 2, ought to read the latter part, that there's nothing good apart from God in me. That's literally how it ought to translate. Okay, you think you good and you all of that, but watch this, it ain't nothing good about me. The only thing good about me is the God that's in me. And every now and then you gotta tell folk, remind them, you need to dust all that stuff off the pages, because some of y'all think you all of that and a bag of chips. But the truth be known, some of y'all don't have some skeletons in your closet. You got some whole cemeteries in your closet. What? He said, my goodness does not extend to thee. There's nothing good about me apart from you. But verse 3, he talks to the saints. He says, as for the saints that are in the earth, and to the excellent in whom is all my delight. Verse 3, let me translate it, what it says, to the big ballers and shot callers, to those that think they got it all together. You got retirement together. Yeah, you got all your bills on automatic pilot. You think ain't nobody smarter than you. Verse 3, he includes you in the text. Then he says in verse 4, he says, their sorrows shall be multiplied. That hasten, that term hasten means to wed or hook themselves up after other gods. He said their drink offerings, watch this, of blood will I not offer, not take up their names unto my lips. Notice what he said. He said, my BMW is not what I ought to worship. My car is not what I ought to worship. My kids, my cash, my crib, my clothes is not what I ought to worship. I ought to worship God and keep him first in all things. And that's how it translates. But it goes a step up. He said, verse 5, the Lord is the portion. He's the part of my inheritance and of my cup. He says, you maintain my life. Now, in other words, I know some of us, we think we grew up with a bad plotting life. We think life dealt us a bad hand. You think because uncle molested you, you think because granddaddy touched you, you think because big mama cussed at you, you think life has really dealt you a bad hand. But verse 5 says, it don't matter about none of that, because the Lord is my inheritance. He maintains my life. And every now and then you gotta know that stuff may have happened, but it didn't allow it to happen to me for me to be defined by that. Do I have any witnesses here? I ain't gonna be called crazy no more. I ain't gonna be called schizophrenia no more. I ain't gonna be called that girl no more, because I understand that God has my life. But verse 6 was what I was trying to get to. I really said all of that to get to verse 6. He says, the lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. The term lines there is a unique word. The term lines there means the territory. Here's a prophetic word if you want one. I know we always listening out for a prophetic word. Here's a prophetic word. Verse 6, it says that the territory is fallen unto me in sweet places. Now I know what you're saying. How is that prophetic? That's so general. That's not specific enough for me. But whenever you think about your life and think about everything that God has done, it could be a whole lot worse. So since it could be a whole lot worse, here's your prophetic word. The territory is fallen unto me in sweet places. In other words, wherever I am right now, I'm going to thank God where I am, because it could be a lot worse. And since it's not Let me go through this in verse 7. I will bless the Lord who had given me counsel. He gave me advice. My heart, my mind instruct me in night seasons. All of us that had night seasons. Oh, I know. You forget about, some of us, we forget about night season. Some of us, we in night season right now. We're not talking about the atmospheric night. We're talking about the night when it seems to suggest, you know, you get paid on yesterday. And the day you already broke. Okay, y'all ain't coming across like I need you to. You know, when your change is strange, when your money is, okay, all y'all got it all together. But let me tell you, it's some of us in here, we got paid on yesterday, and we wish that the 30th would roll around on tomorrow. Do I have any witnesses here? And every now and then you got to know that there ain't nothing but a night season. But look what God does. God gives me advice and counsel in my gloomy, dark season. Well, I got closing. Thank y'all for being so kind. Thank y'all for being so patient. Verse 7 allows us to know I'm going to bless the Lord. Verse 8 said, I set the Lord always before me. Because he's at my right hand. I shall not be moved. I can't be moved. You know why? Because I know who the Lord is. Watch this. Y'all, every now and then you have to thank God that God does not move. Y'all, last week we all watched the press conference that came on ESPN for 1 hour. Y'all, Cleveland Cavaliers thought LeBron James was going to stay in Cleveland. I know it's some Bulls fans in here. You excited that he didn't stay. And y'all watch what happened. Watch what happened. He got on the news, for those of y'all that may not have cable and may not read, watch what happened. He got on the news and put it on the broadcast that he was moving from Cleveland to Miami Heat. And y'all, there were folks that were so upset, they burned his jersey, they ripped down all his billboards in Cleveland. The owner even got on the television and ripped him by way of a letter. I stopped to allow somebody in here to know that folk will move, they will change. They will leave you. But is there anybody in here that knows that the God that we serve does not change? Malachi chapter 3 verse 6. God says, for I am the Lord thy God. I change not. In Hebrews 13 and 8, he says Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today and forever. You don't have to worry about God changing. He's always in the same spot, in the same place, and he does not move. Is there anybody here that know he don't move? He does not move. Well, when I think about all that God has done for me, I'm grateful that God keeps me. I'm glad that God keeps his guard over me. Anybody here know that when you look over your life and you begin to think about